Okay, forget everything you think you know about consciousness. A high-ranking Soviet academician proved the human mind, your spirit, is a boundless energy field capable of exiting the body. And he proved it with actual experiments where a human operator in Moscow transmitted information that was successfully registered by instruments affecting cell cultures in a lab 2,000 miles away. Welcome back to the deep dive. What we're about to get into is going to challenge and maybe even change the way you understand yourself. We are starting with a premise that is so radical, so completely rejected by mainstream Western science that it sounds like fiction.
It sounds like philosophy, but it was proven with decades of cold, hard Soviet-era data.
Exactly. We are opening the files of Academician VP Kaznacheyev,
a man who dared to study what he called the phenomenon of man, and his conclusion was, well, staggering.
Which was?
That everything we think about consciousness, that it's just a bunch of electrical and chemical signals rattling around inside your skull, is fundamentally wrong. It's an intellectual illusion.
We're talking about a hidden reality, a forbidden fabric of the universe. What if the spirit or the soul wasn't just some hopeful religious idea,
but a detectable, field-based energy organization, something you could actually register?
Yes. And what if your brain right now, the one hooked up to every screen and AI you can find, is heading down a path that Kaznacheyev explicitly warned us about? Today, we are on a mission to trace this incredible intellectual journey.
From, believe it or not, distant telepathic experiments proving non-biological information transfer,
all the way to the revolutionary idea of the human head as a field computer.
We're going to explore how life can exist in forms that have nothing to do with DNA and why our current obsession with the inanimate dead world is frankly crippling our cosmic potential.
The urgency here isn't academic, it's existential. This is a journey that connects telepathy, holographic DNA, and maybe the biggest intellectual failure of modern science. Let's dive deep.
So let's start at the beginning, the intellectual landscape. What on earth would force a scientist of Kaznacheyev's stature to basically go rogue and set up an alternative research body?
Well, he wasn't just, dissatisfied. He saw a deep fundamental flaw in the very structure of modern science, a flaw that he believed guaranteed failure. And he gave it a name, didn't he?
He did. He called it the scientific asymmetry.
Break that down. It sounds important.
It's a beautifully simple idea, really, but it explains so much. Modern science, going all the way back to Newton and Descartes, has focused almost exclusively on the inanimate world.
Right. The mechanics of planets, the chemistry of rocks, the physics of things that are, for lack of a better word, dead.
Precisely. And this research is incredibly detailed, incredibly powerful. But it's created this critical asymmetry in what we know.
We know everything about how to blow something up, but we know almost nothing about what makes something truly alive.
That's it, exactly. So trying to explain the processes of living matter consciousness, self-organization, evolution, all these incredibly complex ordered things, using only the rule book derived from non-living matter is, in his words, impossible and guaranteed to lead to defeat.
It's a methodological dead end. We're studying life with tools that were only ever designed to study death.
It's like trying to understand a symphony by only analyzing the acoustics of the concert hall. You're missing the music entirely.
This sounds less like a scientific critique and more like a philosophical indictment of the entire Western scientific project since the Enlightenment.
It is. And Kaznacheyev points out that by going down this path, we deliberately ignored a rich, powerful history of Russian thought. He calls it a lost renaissance.
A whole school of thought we just missed.
A whole constellation of brilliant minds, he lists them. Lazarev, Florensky, Vernadsky, Bekhterev, Chizevsky, Vasiliev. They were part of a movement called Russian Cosmism. These weren't fringe thinkers. In their time, they were giants.
And what were these intellectual protuberances, as he calls them, trying to tell us?
They were arguing that, yes, of course, living matter accepts the physical and chemical environment, but that it primarily reflects unknown organizations of matter.
Unknown organizations.
Organizations that are both cosmic and terrestrial in scale. They saw life as being fundamentally connected to universal fields and energetic flows. It's a concept that's just utterly foreign to our reductionist biology.
So someone like Chizevsky, who was obsessed with how solar flares and cosmic rays directly influenced human history, wars, even epidemics.
Yeah. Exactly. He wasn't seeing us as a closed system. He saw the human organism as a kind of sponge, perpetually reacting to this vast, energetic environment it's swimming in.
But this knowledge which he says could have accelerated the science of man, the science of the living, was just left on the table.
It was tragically unused, or in some cases, actively suppressed. We took the easier, more mechanical path. And that failure brings us to the urgent catastrophe paradox.
Okay, so this is the why you should care part. Why should you, sitting there with your smartphone, care that some Soviet scientists from a century ago were ignored?
Because it directly impacts our survival. Right now, Kaznacheyev gives this shocking analysis of our current intellectual state. He argues that the human intellect is oversaturated and hypertrophied with knowledge about the inanimate world.
We've optimized the wrong system.
Think about it like a hard drive. He says 99% of our collective knowledge base, from big data to particle physics, focuses on the mechanisms of the dead world.
Wow, 99%.
Which means we know virtually nothing about the deep mechanisms of the living world, especially ourselves.
So our planetary hard drive is 99% full of geological data, and we've left 1% for, consciousness itself.
Now, what happens when we hit that wall? When our internal capacity is full of the wrong information, we frantically try to compensate by supplementing ourselves with artificial computers and AI. And this is where Kaznacheyev issues his most chilling warning.
Which is?
This frantic supplementing, this offloading of our thinking to machines risks becoming a dead-end branch of development.
A dead-end branch. Wow. So not because AI is going to become Skynet and kill us all.
No, not at all. It's a dead end because we are using AI to further optimize our knowledge of the inanimate world. We're doubling down on the 99% while completely ignoring the living, field-based aspect of reality that actually drives evolution.
We're optimizing for oblivion.
He literally frames humanity's future as a binary choice. Technocracy and blind perishing, or another path of development.
And that other path is what this is all about. Shifting that ratio. Beginning a radical renaissance of intellect based on the living, non-biological substance of what we are. Okay, so if the official academic world was, stuck in this inanimate box, Kaznacheyev had to find another way. He didn't just write papers. He created an alternative authority.
He did. He became the head of the Committee on Energy-Information Exchange in Nature. And the key here is that this was a non-academic public organization.
So outside the system.
Deliberately. It was designed to be an alternative to what he called the current academic monopoly. Its only purpose was to guarantee freedom of search into phenomena that official science had actively rejected or just labeled as pseudoscience.
That sounds dangerous, thrilling, and completely necessary all at the same time.
And from this base, they generated the empirical evidence, the hard data that, if you take it seriously, basically invalidates half of modern biology.
And the core of that finding was?
Distant interaction of cells and organisms through field energy processes.
So proving that life is primarily a field phenomenon, not just a chemical soup.
And the most mind-blowing experiment, the one they conducted reliably over decades, was registering distant bioinformation transfer.
Okay, give us the headline. I want the details. Where were they and what were they doing?
They successfully and repeatedly demonstrated that. An operator located in Moscow is affecting living cells in Novosibirsk.
Moscow and Novosibirsk, how far apart is that?
Over 3,000 kilometers, about 2,000 miles. A distance that makes any kind of conventional transfer mechanism, chemical, acoustic, anything physical through the ground, absolutely impossible.
I have to push back a little here because my skeptical brain is firing on all cylinders. How do we know this wasn't just, statistical noise? A coincidence? How robust were the controls?
That's the critical question. And the answer is in the scale and the reliability. They didn't just do it once. They didn't stop with Moscow and Novosibirsk.
They expanded it.
Massively. They performed large-scale experiments where information was successfully transferred to the target cells from 15 cities across the country.
15 cities.
Kaznacheyev himself was unequivocal about it. He said, quote, "This is reliable material." They were so confident they were even starting to coordinate with a U.S. university to try and study information transfer across the Pacific Ocean. This was serious, standardized, rigorous science.
Unbelievable. Okay, so let's zoom in on the actual experiment itself, the one that got that 70+% reliability rate, the mirror cytopathic effect. Break this down for us, ELI5.
Of course. The elegance of it is in its simplicity. They use tissue cultures. So imagine two identical petri dishes with living cells side by side.
Okay.
They're in two separate hermetically sealed chambers. The only thing connecting them is a barrier. And that barrier is usually a thin plate of quartz.
Why quartz? What's special about that?
Because quartz is chemically inert. It blocks any viruses, toxins, any complex molecules from passing between the two chambers. It makes physical contamination impossible.
So the strong links, the chemical links, are severed.
They're severed, but, and this is the whole point, quartz is transparent to super weak electromagnetic radiation, to photons, to field energy.
It forces the communication, if there is any, to be purely field-based.
Exactly. So then they introduce a disaster into the first chamber. A lethal virus, a poison, something that will kill the cells.
And the cells in that first chamber start to get sick, they degrade, they die. That's the cytopathic effect.
Right. Now you watch the second chamber, the one that's completely isolated, the one that never saw the virus or the poison.
And the mirror effect kicks in.
The adjacent, unexposed culture begins to reproduce the exact same degradation and death pattern.
No way.
The cells in the second chamber die, or they get sick, with a reliability of between 73 and 78%. The information of death or catastrophe was transmitted purely through the field.
73 to 78%. That's staggering.
Yeah.
That's not an anomaly. That's a constant. That's a mechanism.
It is. It means the cell has to have an internal system that receives, processes, and acts upon field information just as readily as it does chemical information.
And what is that system?
The mechanism they confirmed is that cells function as incredibly sensitive devices that both emit and absorb photons. We're talking about super weak electromagnetic fields. These quantum information streams aren't just background noise. They are the primary regulators of biological life.
So cells are literally talking to each other with light.
And not just to each other. They observed that the reliability of this effect wasn't constant. It would fluctuate.
Based on what?
Based on the state of the cosmic field environment. Solar flares, geomagnetic storms, even the geographic latitude of the laboratory, all of it changed the rate of cell death.
So the natural electromagnetic background of the Earth and the cosmos isn't just background noise.
It's the master broadcast signal. It's the carrier wave that dictates the rules of biological existence from moment to moment.
We're basically getting a cosmic software update every single day.
Yeah.
And let's take a breath here. This is a lot. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. We started with the idea that modern science is obsessed with the dead world. And now we have decades of hard empirical proof that life itself communicates through these super weak fields across thousands of miles.
Right. A cell is a quantum radio receiver, a photon constellation.
So if biological boundaries, the walls of our cells, the surface of our skin, if they aren't really boundaries at all,
then where does our intellect, where does our self actually reside? We've just moved completely past chemistry and physics. We're now in the realm of biophysics to understand what living substance actually is.
And this field substance isn't passive like a crystal. It's active. It's capable of inscribing itself into other formations.
It is, which is the next logical step. If a single cell is a transceiver, what happens when you cluster billions of them together? What happens when you scale it up inside a human skull?
That's where the real leap has to happen.
Absolutely. And that's what their research focused on next, the architecture of consciousness itself, moving from the micro level of the cell to the macro level of human intelligence.
And that leads to this astonishing theory of the non-biological field computer. My mechanical boundaries are officially confused. Let's figure this out.
So the theory they developed posits that the emergence of human intellect wasn't this slow, gradual chemical process. It was more like an explosive phase change.
A switch being flipped.
Exactly. A result of matter organization hitting a certain critical mass.
What's the critical mass? Why isn't a chimpanzee, which is genetically so close to us, having this conversation?
Kaznacheyev's team theorized a specific quantitative threshold. Once living matter, specifically the developing nervous system, acquires between 15 and 20 billion neurons, the process of development becomes fundamentally non-biological.
Non-biological.
New, higher qualities emerge that just break all the rules of conventional biology.
Okay, I need to understand why. What is so magical about the number 15 to 20 billion? What happens at that point?
It's about critical density. It's the density required for the collective field to stabilize. See, each individual neuron has its own tiny field, and those are all interconnected by the physical brain, the neural networks.
The gray matter.
The gray matter, which he called the computer of conductors. That's the hardware. It's still incredibly important.
But the hardware isn't the consciousness.
Correct. When you hit that critical threshold of 15 to 20 billion individual fields all hunting together, they don't just add up, they integrate. They stabilize and form an overriding, singular, non-mechanical structure.
And that structure is...
His fields computer.
So let me see if I've got this straight. The computer of conductors is the physical wetware brain, governed by chemistry. The field computer is the non-mechanical, non-local organization of energy that uses the physical brain as an interface, but isn't limited by it.
That is a perfect clarification, and this field computer can assimilate, adapt, and multiply information. It's functionally intelligent, but its key attribute, the thing that makes it truly non-biological, is that it has no mechanical boundaries.
No mechanical boundaries. And this is where my skeptical host brain has to ask the burning philosophical question again. But this time, it's got the weight of Soviet biophysics behind it. If this field form has no mechanical boundaries, and it can exist independent of the physical body, I mean, is this the spirit? Is this the soul?
Kaznacheyev knew this question would come up. He acknowledged the semantic problem. When he was discussing this highly organized field form of living substance, he said, quote, "You can call it that."
Wow.
This isn't mysticism. It's him saying, we have scientifically confirmed a non-mechanical, living, registerable component of a human being that can sit within our protein-nucleic life. Or it can exit it. And he said this validates what pioneers like Florensky were calling for a century ago, to start seriously studying the sphere of the spirit as a scientific reality.
It is absolutely earth-shattering. It just reframes everything. Consciousness is the operating system, and the physical brain is just the CPU it runs on.
And it changes the whole timeline of human evolution, too. We're not talking about some slow, gradual genetic creep anymore.
No, this leads to that theory of the evolutionary jump.
Exactly. Anthropogenesis, the birth of human consciousness, wasn't a long, slow Darwinian process. It was a critical, explosive moment.
When those 15 billion neural fields
united in a jump to form that single, collective, stable field.
A cognitive supernova.
You could call it that. It was a rapid, cosmic, planetary, biophysical event, not a slow genetic modification. The physical body was finally ready, the hardware was in place, and the cosmic switch flipped, integrating our species into this universal field network.
Which means the blueprint for life itself must also be non-biological.
So we've established the mind as a field computer. Now let's talk about the foundational code. What is life actually based on if it's not entirely on those protein-nucleic chains we call DNA?
And this brings us to his revolutionary view of genetics.
Right. Modern genetics, for the most part, focuses on the active working parts of our DNA, the genes that are busy synthesizing proteins.
But Kaznacheyev's work focused on the other part, the immense amount of what we used to call junk DNA.
Or sleeping chromosomes, which scientists now call non-coding DNA, and it's a massive part of our genome.
So why did he think this sleeping material was so important?
He argued their function isn't to build things. Their function is to maintain a holographic spatial field organization.
Okay, that's the ultimate deep nugget right there. DNA is a holographic film.
It's the material anchor point for a pre-existing energetic blueprint. So the active working genes, they're just inscribing the physical material, the proteins and whatnot, into this holographic template that's already there.
So the field organization comes first. It dictates the structure. The DNA just provides the scaffolding and the bricks.
Exactly. Which leads to an even bigger thought. If you destroy the physical DNA, the blueprint, that field template, might still exist.
And if that blueprint is cosmic and field-based, then life doesn't actually need our specific Earth-based chemical limitations to exist.
And that is the truly astonishing conclusion Kaznacheyev reached. The protein-nucleic form of life we know on Earth is absolutely not the only form of life.
Not the only one.
The universe, being this continuous flow of highly organized energy, must sustain life that is based purely on field organization.
Yeah, I think it's time to just drop the mic and say it out loud. He's talking about non-DNA, field-based aliens.
He argues for it definitively, the existence of field forms of living matter, an organization of material energy flows that stores and accumulates information at the level of microparticles and microfields. This substance is active, it's organized, and it exists throughout the cosmos, totally indifferent to our rules about chemistry.
And he used this framework to explain things that most scientists just dismiss out of hand, didn't he? Anomalous phenomena.
Yes. He said when you rigorously analyze UFO sightings, after you filter out all the noise, the weather balloons, the misidentified planes, physical plasmoids, the remaining irreducible facts,
The really strange stuff.
are, in his view, associated with field forms of living matter. They are manifestations of non-DNA life interacting with our reality, creatures defined purely by their coherent energetic state.
So the truth isn't that little green men are landing in a flying saucer. The truth is that non-mechanical living energy might be passing through us all the time.
And we just don't have the senses to perceive it correctly.
This is truly mind-bending. But let's bring it back to Earth for a second. How does this universal cosmic field environment affect us directly?
Well, since our bodies, through the field computer and the holographic DNA, are fundamentally linked to that external field, it acts as a massive regulator. The solar radiation, the background radiation of the universe, it's all part of the system.
And this leads to that incredible hypothesis about human potential.
Yes. The birth rate of gifted people, people with unique talents, genius, psychic abilities, is hypothesized to increase depending on the state of the cosmic field environment.
So human genius isn't just random genetic luck.
It's a direct consequence of a favorable, highly energetic cosmic alignment at the moment of conception or birth. The universe is actively pushing our evolution forward through these energy flows.
We're not just products of chemistry. We are children of cosmic timing. We're literally born smarter when the galactic weather is good. Okay, we have just navigated through suppressed Soviet science, the reality of non-biological consciousness, holographic DNA, and a scientific justification for field aliens. This is the kind of deep, challenging knowledge that flips your whole reality on its head, and frankly, this deep dive is only possible because we can dedicate the time and resources to dig this stuff up and synthesize it.
This is definitely not research you're going to find on the front page of mainstream science journals. It requires going into archives, translating dense biophysical texts, and connecting dots that official science has, well, deliberately obscured for decades.
So if this content resonates with you, if you appreciate having the curtain pulled back on these forbidden topics, we really need you to stick with us and support the mission. This is where you come in. Go ahead and like and subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And if you want the deepest secrets, the exclusive materials that keep us funded and digging into this knowledge, please join our memberships. Your support is literally what enables this intellectual renaissance.
Absolutely. Now, let's get back to it. Because the entire purpose of all this research, according to Kaznacheyev, was about one thing: survival. We have to unlock our full potential to avoid that catastrophe he warned us about.
And that requires understanding the ultimate secret of how we're organized, the concept of weak ecological links.
Right, survival. It depends on understanding two very different ways we interact with the environment. There are the obvious ones, and then there are the ones that Kaznacheyev argued are actually the most vital.
The strong links and the weak links.
Exactly. Strong links are what modern science already studies. Trophic chains, chemical cycles, the food web, basic Newtonian physics. You know, how your physical body interacts with its environment to survive day to day.
If you don't eat, you die. That's a strong link failure.
A classic strong link failure. These are the mechanical, biological necessities.
But the real engine of evolution, of higher consciousness, lies in the weak links.
The weak links. These are the field-based interactions, the communication that's mediated by that super weak non-chemical field energy we were talking about earlier, and they only really become dominant when the strong links are pushed to their absolute breaking point.
And the key to understanding how these weak links even work relies on a concept that sounds like it's straight out of theoretical physics, but he's applying it to biology: the soliton.
You're right, that's a great point. A soliton in physics is a self-reinforcing wave. It's a wave packet that holds its shape and keeps moving without dispersing. It resists chaos.
So the field form of living matter, our field computer, it operates like a soliton.
Yes. Life itself is a process designed to maintain its organization, its wave shape, against the constant entropic chaos of the universe.
So the organism is basically a continuous, self-maintaining, energetic wave propagating through the cosmos. And this soliton mechanism allows the body to enter a profound, altered state of reality.
The Kaznacheyev state. And to explain this, we have to give a quick nod to another Soviet genius, the astrophysicist N.A. Kaznacheyev.
His radical idea was that time is not just a dimension, but a material flow of energy.
And Kaznacheyev used that physics to explain the mechanism of the weak links.
Okay, time is an actual energy source.
The Kaznacheyev state describes what happens when an organism is pushed to the absolute lower limit of its viability. Think extreme stress, deep fatigue, imminent danger, near-death experiences.
When the strong chemical links are failing.
Right. When the body is about to give up, it undergoes this fundamental shift.
What happens?
The organism essentially leaves our familiar Newtonian space. In the zero state, its sensitivity to the physical world, to heat, to sound, it decreases dramatically because it's no longer prioritizing chemical survival.
It's letting go of the physical.
And instead, life, which is now completely dominated by its non-biological field form, the soliton, it accelerates. And its boundaries expand rapidly, theoretically, toward infinity.
So when the physical body shuts down, the field computer boots up and expands. That explains telepathy. If my field boundaries are expanding to infinity, I can communicate non-locally across any distance.
That's the mechanism. And in this accelerated non-Newtonian state, the organism gains sensitivity to the true material nature of time. It starts to perceive the energy flows of time that Kaznacheyev described.
And perceiving time as an active force is what unlocks intuition, precognition, remote viewing. All of it.
It's the engine of anomalies.
Which means our primitive ancestors weren't just guessing about where the herd was. They were accessing the cosmic time stream through their field computers whenever they were under intense survival pressure.
That is the core takeaway. That first evolutionary jump that created human intellect, anthropogenesis, it was an explosive closure onto these weak ecological links. The field computer created a collective intellect, a shared psychic awareness.
Which was an incredible survival mechanism for the human pack organism.
Overwhelmingly so. If one member of the tribe was in danger, the whole tribe knew it, instantaneously. Across any distance, telepathy was the original social network.
It wasn't a party trick. It was the essential infrastructure that guaranteed the pack's survival.
And this ability was eventually specialized. The sources suggest this field-based mechanism was mastered by certain individuals in early societies.
The shamans, the priests, the healers.
They formed necessary social institutions using these weak links, this ability to perceive the cosmic flow for guidance, for healing, for regulating the population.
Which raises the most devastating point in this entire deep dive. If this capacity is so fundamental to our survival, why is it basically gone from modern society?
Because our modern social, economic, and technological structure actively suppresses it. We are obsessed with the strong links, the physical, the chemical, the mechanical, and we have starved the field computer.
And Kaznacheyev's research actually put a number on it.
A horrifying number. It concluded that the realization of unique personal qualities, true talents, deep gifts, that full spiritual and intellectual potential is limited to only 3 to 5% of the population today.
Only 3 to 5% of us are operating anywhere near full capacity.
Which means 95% of humanity's psychic and intellectual reserves are just sitting there, dormant, suppressed by our obsession with the inanimate world.
And this systemic suppression, this failure to fulfill what he calls our vital cycle, leads directly back to that technological dead end he warned us about.
The solution, then, isn't some new external technology. It has to be an internal awakening.
The urgent renaissance of field forms of intellect, shifting our focus away from the dead world and finally starting to study the deep mechanisms of the living. We started with this shocking idea of a scientific asymmetry and traced it all the way through distant cellular experiments that proved non-biological transfer. We established the human head as a field computer governed by cosmic holographic blueprints, and we finished by decoding the soliton in the Kaznacheyev state, understanding how the very energy flows of time can be accessed in our most vulnerable moments.
The core revelation, the synthesis of this entire deep dive, is that life is a highly organized, universal flow of matter. And the key purpose of life isn't just to exist, it's to continuously increase the negentropy, the inherent order and complexity of its surrounding environment.
Strong links maintain our existence, but the weak links, driven by the field computer, are what propel us toward cosmic order and true evolution.
And humanity, equipped with this powerful, mostly untapped field computer, is like a geological agent, a child playing with immense self-destructive power.
Our survival doesn't hinge on our next gadget. It hinges on mastering the field-based mechanisms, the weak ecological links that define our real place in the cosmos. Suppressing 95% of our potential is the true catastrophe.
So we have to leave you with this. If that ancient field-based ability for distant psychic connection was essential for the survival of the primitive human community, what unknown, untapped cosmic reserve is your own field computer currently suppressing? What potential is being blocked by this obsession with the inanimate world? And what existential catastrophe are we as a species inviting by ignoring it? The answers, as Academician Kaznacheyev so meticulously warned, lie only in studying the living, not just the dead.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.